We start tonight, President Sippy Cup. Your President Joe Biden probably resting comfortably after his big summit with Vladimir. As predicted by any objective measure, the meeting was an utter train wreck. Putin basically gave Joe nothing. The United States, nothing. He made not a single concession. There were zero agreements. And after the meeting, Putin held a solo press conference where, let's see, he mocked and trashed the U.S. at length. Then Biden gave a short, scripted speech, probably written before the summit, took a handful of questions from, as always, pre-selected reporters, and then got very cranky and lashed out at reporters, which tends to happen when you don't get your warm milky. Even Stephen Colbert, radical that he is, brutally mocking Grandpa Joe last night. But don't worry, because Joe proudly announced that he presented Putin with a list of 16. Now, pay attention here. This is important. 16 critical areas of American infrastructure that Vladimir and the Russians better not target with a cyber attack. That includes telecommunications, healthcare, food, and energy. Okay, first point. How dumb is it to give a hostile actor, an evil guy like Vladimir Putin, 16 specific things, a roadmap that would cripple the USA? That's pretty dumb. Second, Russia has already launched, just in recent weeks, not one, but two cyber attacks against our energy sector and our food sector. And Biden, he didn't respond in any way. So, question, what would stop Putin from going after the other 14 sectors? And third, all cyber attacks against America and Americans. Joe, that already should be off limits. You should have lectured him loudly. There should be consequences, not waivers to build pipelines. Really, really dumb, even for Biden. But as per usual, the mob, the media, they're trying so hard to keep the Biden protection program going. Although we're starting to see cracks here and there. Even late night comics are beginning to realize this guy's not really with us, is he? New York Times reporting, after meeting Putin, a Biden trait shows itself again, stubborn optimism. And look at this from the Washington Post. Biden wiped the smirk off Putin's face. Yeah, OK. Of course, the high praise continued on fake news, TV networks all around the country. Take a look.
I can't think of a more successful diplomatic trip in the 21st century than this one.
My insight watching the press conference yesterday was there was a kind of poetry in his prose. I think that this contrast that we saw today between President Trump and President Biden is an attempt for the administration to say, look, we are the adults in the room.
I think that Joe Biden is the man of the moment. And yes, he turned on Caitlin Collins. Fine. For a moment. And then he apologized. He's such a nice guy. He apologized. Did you ever once hear Trump apologize to a reporter?
It's just an interesting posture. I viewed it at one point. I wrote Professor Biden because I thought he was trying to basically be above it, be above the meeting and explain, look, guys, he's playing a game.
I'm having a really hard time not reaching to my left, picking up this trash barrel right here and puking in it. Fox News, CNN's Jeff Zeleny continued the Pravda-style praise on Twitter, writing, quote, Joe Biden carried himself with a seasoned air of confidence that new presidents seldom possess. On air, CNN reporter had a rare moment of honesty, though, however, because he did go after Caitlin Collins. He was very mean to her. Take a look.
What we've not seen him do is answer questions like that without his aides screaming at him to stop. I have never seen a president, covering the last four of them, who is so protected by his aides in terms of often not wanting him to answer some questions. They were silent today.
Jeff, take it to the next level. Why are they controlling him? Oh, I'm going to get in trouble if I take another question. I can't take another question. Why? Because his own staff knows he's not capable of giving a coherent answer. Anyone with common sense knows what's going on here. Joe Biden gets agitated at the drop of a hat. He gets cranky without his warm milky and his sippy cup, frequently forgets what he's saying mid-sentence. At times, he seems totally lost, dazed, and confused, and that's why Sippy Cup staff prevents him from answering too many questions, because they hate cleaning up the mess that he makes. And tonight our country needs a capable leader, not a mumbling, bumbling idiot. America's facing serious problems. A crisis at our southern border, it's real. The rising threat of China, Iran, Russia, war in the Middle East, spiking inflation. By the way, rightly so, 70% of Americans think Biden's policies are making it worse. And of course, inflation is not, well, a concern for the big guy because the Biden family syndicate business, that's booming. Zero experience Hunter is now an artiste. And despite no formal training, no degree, no experience, no talent even, Hunter's paintings are expected to fetch up to $500,000 a piece. I don't know, maybe we'll call it Portraits of a Crackhead turned political influence peddler. Now, the buyers will remain anonymous, of course. They got to keep up this pay-to-play scheme they've got going. Hunter, once again, is selling access, just like he did with Ukraine and Burisma Holdings with no experience, just like the $1.5 billion deal with the Bank of China, the $100,000 shopping spree. How many of us get a $100,000 shopping spree with a Chinese national? And don't forget the money from Russia, $3.5 million with the Russian oligarch, former First Lady of Moscow. Then there's the Kazakh oligarchs that he got money from. Joe Biden just claimed that Ukraine, now think about this, is too corrupt to be in NATO, but apparently not corrupt for his son to do business and make millions with Ukraine, or for him to demand that they fire a prosecutor or they're not getting our tax dollars. Wow, that whole thing seems corrupt. No legitimate person, no entity would ever pay Hunter Biden a single penny for his expertise in anything. His art, I'm sure, is not that good. Hunter is a longtime degenerate, crack addict, banned from a Southern California hotel. Why? Smoking crack. Allegedly kicked out of a D.C. strip club. It's kind of hard, I would imagine, to get kicked out of a strip club. I'm just guessing. I don't go. For what? Oh, smoking crack again. According to the Daily Mail, he repeatedly called his white lawyer the N-word. Imagine if Don Jr. or Eric Trump did that. Other texts showing Hunter using other racial slurs against Asian Americans. Recently denied at first and then tried to abandon his newborn child. Then he did something really incredible. He kicked the mother of his child off of her health insurance shortly after the child was born. Joey's pride and joy, Hunter. And by the way, Hunter also reportedly, oh yeah, he lied on his gun application. That would be called a felony. Then later, he took the firearm and ditched it in a dumpster. Thank God a responsible citizen found it. Hunter Biden is seriously troubled, but that never stopped his father, Joe Biden, from using his son to fill the Biden syndicate family coffers. And, of course, Joe Biden denies this. On multiple occasions, Joe Biden claimed never, not one time, ever, did he speak to Hunter Biden, zero experience Hunter, about his foreign business dealings. Not once, he said. Take a look.
Mr. Vice President, how many times have you ever spoken to your son about his overseas business dealings?
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings. I have never discussed with my son or my brother or anyone else anything having to do with their businesses, period.
Do you stand by your statement that you did not discuss any of your son's overseas business dealings?
Yes,
Never, not once. Well, Joe Biden now, we know, is lying. A picture has emerged in the last 2 weeks, and a picture speaks 1,000 words. This picture shows Joe and Hunter together with Hunter's foreign business dealing from Kazakhstan. They gave Hunter money, too. Multiple pictures, eyewitness accounts, troves of emails and texts from Hunter's laptop reveal that the big guy, Joe, was an integral part of Hunter's business activities while he was vice president. Highly unethical, definitely corrupt. And now the important part. That actually compromises our country. It puts our country at risk. At the very least, the appearance of impropriety is through the roof. We all know that the media would treat this differently if it was a Trump. And by the way, a good, decent human being would not exploit his troubled son for his own financial gain. How serious is it? Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.